I now would like to call up to the virtual stage two of the main authors of this publication, and who better could tell us something about it than they. Dear Khushwant Singh, dear Philip Grinstedt, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Ophelia, for the kind introduction. As this is a virtual event, I believe some of you may have already opened the publication in the background and hopefully started reading. In that case, I'd actually be happy if you're not listening to me. But for all others, it's my pleasure to now, together with Khushwant Singh, give you an overview of the publication, as well as a brief introduction to the global project Quality Infrastructure. And I would like to start with the title of the publication, United in Quality and Safety. I don't want to explain the title because I think that's a little bit like explaining a joke that's not really the best way to get people's attention. But I do think that there's actually a lot in it already in the title that is interesting. First of all, quality. Quality is, of course, crucial for many aspects, including for competitiveness. Does it last? Does it work well? Does the product meet my expectations? But these are very subjective things, and they do keep changing. What is considered being high quality today may not be high quality tomorrow. And because quality is subjective and keeps changing and is linked to innovation, in the EU and Germany, it is largely determined by market forces and not controlled by the government, so to say. That is, even though we hear the term mandatory quality standards quite a lot. Of course, it doesn't mean that the government is absent. The government does support quality by creating the right conditions. And quality infrastructure is one of them, especially the voluntary side of it, sort of voluntary standards and voluntary quality marks, for example. On the other side, we have safety. Safety is, of course, a key public interest. It's one key public interest in addition to other aspects, of course, like environmental or climate protection, as well as electromagnetic compatibility. And we think because our lives and health are at stake, safety requires government intervention, setting regulations and making sure they're also being enforced. But if it's not being done right, regulation may, of course, be in conflict with innovation. And to me, that's a key theme in the publication. How can governments ensure that products are safe without stifling innovation? And here, quality infrastructure really plays a critical role. Lastly, we heard it a lot in the panel discussion, united. In the light of global value chains, creating a shared understanding of quality and safety in products creates trust and it eases international trade. And in the EU, I think we have a lot of lessons learned on how to integrate countries within the EU single market and how to use quality infrastructure and product legislation to achieve this. Germany, as we heard, wants to take this further, and the EU as well. With the global project Quality Infrastructure, Germany aims to unite with international partners and bring markets and people closer together. And this publication that we're launching today is part of this initiative. And it was actually requested by Germany's international partners who want to understand the German and European system and the approaches to quality infrastructure better. Before I now dive into the content of the publication, I would like to pass on to Khushwant, who will introduce the global project Quality Infrastructure. Khushwant, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Philip. I'm really, really happy and I feel honored to be part of this very interesting and very important exchange today. And it's always a very special moment when the baby sees the light of the world, and Philip and me and all the others have been working on this publication for a long time. So it's a very special moment also for us. I will give you a very brief overview of the global project Quality Infrastructure. You have heard a lot of things already by Director Stefan Schnorr, but also by the high-level experts on quality infrastructure, so we will keep it short. The global project Quality Infrastructure is commissioned by the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. And I think The uniqueness of the project lies in its holistic approach. We do not look at one specific segment or sector of economy or quality infrastructure, but we look at all key aspects of quality infrastructure, which includes metrology, technical regulation, conformity assessment, accreditation, standardization, and of course, market surveillance. Why do we do that? Because we want to support you and the economy. The industry is in the driver's seat in this project. We want to help the industry, but in the end, the consumers to reduce technical barriers to trade. We want to improve safety of industrial production sites. And of course, we want to increase consumer protection and the protection of the environment through safe products. And a very interesting byproduct of this project is that when we ensure a high level of quality infrastructure, we foster innovation. It's a global project because we work globally. We started to work in China already in 2011. Philip and me, we were working in India on the country component. Mexico and Brazil is a partner country, and Indonesia since 2020. And the cooperation of BNWI extends to Canada, the United States, and also the Eurasian Economic Union. We deal with a lot of topics, and it has been said by the previous speakers. They're, so to speak, classical topics like machinery safety. But in our project, we also work on issues like medical devices. Since the pandemics, it's very important also to work on standards in the field of personal protective equipment. We work on toy safety, on energy issues, but cybersecurity, data protection, e-commerce, these are topics that are gaining importance in the field of quality infrastructure. And of course, mobility plays a crucial role in our project. How do we work? In short, we as GIZ, we facilitate dialogue, a structured long-term dialogue at a political level, but also at a technical level. So we bring together technical experts together with decision makers to ensure that first we identify technical barriers to trade. We share knowledge on these challenges, but we jointly come together to develop concrete solutions on very concrete challenges the industry brings forward into this project. And we also share knowledge beyond the project itself, as we do today. So we also produce publications to make sure that decision makers, but also industry, get the knowledge they need to develop the solutions that are needed and that are needed also in the future. How can you get involved in the project? Actually, it's quite easy. You don't have to fill out big forms. You will not get a dishwasher for free when you send us an email. You can just say, we, company XYZ, face a technical problem with country XYZ. Of course, we are focusing on the partner countries, and then we get into a dialogue with you. And then through the working groups which we have established in the partner countries, we will try to find a solution which is of benefit of all involved parties. So it is important to understand in this project that we try to create a win-win situation for both subsequent countries through bilateral dialogues. And the tradition is that there are stakeholder consultations on the German side, on the side of the partner country, and then there's an annual working group, a high-level working group, and there's a mutual decision on the key topics and priorities, and based on this, a work plan is developed, which is then implemented, usually on an annual basis. So together, at equal levels, we try to foster solutions for the benefit of both countries. So what's in it for you? Philip already said a couple of things. What I really want to highlight, I want to use this moment today, that I really want to thank all the experts and of course BMWI for their amazing support and openness to go for this common project. It's not a daily task also for us at GIZ to bring together so many different stakeholders from all key institutions in a topic. So I really want to say thank you again to BAM, to Bundesnetzagentur, DAX, DIN, DKI, PTB, ZLS, for bringing in leading experts who are really like the brain power of quality infrastructure in Germany, but also beyond in Europe, to ensure that state-of-the-art knowledge of processes, of standardized processes, of key institutions are put together in one publication. So who should read this publication? Public officials, policymakers, of course, and experts in countries which trade with Germany and or the EU. And I think this publication is also important for industry experts who want to understand how does market access to EU and Germany function. And that's very interesting. It was also a learning process for me. If you kind of dwell deeper on the issue of quality infrastructure, you learn about how innovation and quality are intertwined, and how public authorities can ensure product safety by giving this a priority. And on a lighter note, if you want to impress people by telling them that you know what all these different markings that you see on the daily products we use, laptops, mobile phones, and so on, what they mean, you should definitely read this publication. Thank you so much, and I also say goodbye because I have moved on to another project, and I want to use this opportunity to thank you all again for this amazing cooperation over the last years, and hopefully we will see each other soon in another context. I am still with GIZ, but moved on to another important field. Thank you so much, and I give the floor back to Philip.
Thank you very much, Kushwant. So now we're going to dig in a little bit deeper. What's in the publication? The first chapter is already a key chapter because it basically is a summary of how the system of product legislation in the EU and Germany works. It covers some basics like the relationship between national and EU legislation. For example, in the infographic on the right, you can see what is actually the difference between EU directives, EU regulations, how do national legislation, how does that fit in, and what is the mutual recognition principle? We also cover the scope of EU product legislation. How does the EU ensure free movement of products on the EU single market in both harmonized and non-harmonized sectors? And also what are harmonized and non-harmonized sectors? The first chapter covers the key principles of the new legislative framework, which is basically like at the heart of the EU single market, including, for example, the role of harmonized standards, essential requirements in product legislation, for example. We added a lot of summaries and boxes with key points that will hopefully make this chapter both an introduction as well as a refresher for basically anyone interested in the topic, no matter their previous knowledge. Then we kind of switch the perspective a little bit in the second chapter, and we look now at what it means to comply with product legislation. And this is more from the perspective of a manufacturer or other economic operators. So what are the responsibilities of the manufacturer or importer, for example? What types of conformity assessment does EU harmonization legislation use? As a manufacturer, how do I know which one to use? What are notified bodies and how do I know when to involve them? It also covers, of course, key aspects like the manufacturer's declaration of conformity and the CE marking. Again, there's some great material for anyone who wants to have, I think, the most interesting conversations at basically any party. For example, by knowing what the CE marking actually stands for and being able to debunk some common misunderstandings about the CE marking. For example, that the C does not stand for certified and many other things. After that, after those two first chapters, the publication covers each QI element in more detail. So starting with standardization, it covers the principles and processes of standards development in Germany, primarily then by DIN and DKE. Explains their relationship with the government and the integration into international and European standardization. It also covers how harmonized European standards, a key element in the EU single market, the new legislative framework, are being developed. And again, we added a lot of infographics like the one you can see on the right that hopefully make this content very intuitive and easy to grasp. For example, to illustrate processes like how DIN and VDE specs, so like a type of standard, are being developed. After we already covered some part of conformity assessment in the previous chapters, more from a regulatory point of view, we now look at conformity assessment and accreditation also for like voluntary conformity assessment. In the screenshot on the right, you can see, for example, that the publication explains some of the voluntary conformity assessment marks. You can see, for example, the GS mark, which is based on the German Product Safety Act, but it's actually like a voluntary mark. The chapter covers how accreditation, a key aspect in quality infrastructure, works in Germany, as well as in the EU, and how the levels are linked also with the international accreditation. Lastly, I think that's like also of key interest to a lot of Germany's partner countries around the world. It explains what role public bodies in Germany play in conformity assessment. And of course, no QI could do without a reliable system of measurements. The chapter on metrology covers both the legal, industrial, and the scientific metrology, and shows, for example, how Germany makes sure that 1 meter is 1 meter exactly, so ensuring the chain of measurement standards. The chapter also gives an overview of EU and German legislation for measuring instruments, as well as prepackaged products, all in one box, so to say. Lastly, market surveillance, another key element to ensure product safety on the EU market. The chapter describes the responsibilities for market surveillance in the EU, in Germany, as well as in Germany, that's very important, at the level of the German federal states. And I feel as a consumer, we usually don't notice market surveillance. And like hopefully, but we take a look behind the scenes to see what principles make actually market surveillance successful. For example, by being risk-based, involving the economic operators, cross-border cooperation, as well as using IT tools. It shows in a step-by-step manner really the processes that market surveillance authorities follow. And we heard it as well. Of course, we being faced with a lot of challenges around digitalization. And the chapter also covers latest developments, which are a topic of growing concern, the market surveillance of e-commerce products. So this is also covered in this chapter. So now I know this is quite a lot of content in this publication, and it can be quite abstract or even dry. That's why we wanted to make it more practical and actually hands-on. And this is actually one of my favorite parts of this publication, because we added 2 case studies throughout the publication, so in each chapter, that give examples of what this all now means applied to specific products. And we chose one consumer good, a toaster, and one industrial good, an electric motor, to make it easier to understand and more interesting. So if I manufacture a toaster, which EU legislation applies and how do I find out which one? Where do I find harmonized standards that may help me to comply with the legislation? And how do I know if I manufacture an electric motor, whether I need to involve a third-party conformity assessment body? And what is the role of metrology? And then also, what do market surveillance authorities do when actually a toaster is known to catch on fire? What are the steps? What are the responses? So this is all covered in these case studies, and I hope they make the publication more accessible and more interesting to you. Now, I hope we could give you a first impression of why it's worth downloading the publication, as well as sharing it with your colleagues. If this all sounded like a lot, do check out the executive summary. I know we all don't want to read almost 150 pages cover to cover, so do check out the executive summary. Also, I do think that each chapter actually can be read as a standalone. So it should be hopefully easy for you to pick and choose whatever you're most interested in. And lastly, and that's like very important to me, we don't want the publication to just sit on a shelf, no matter whether it's an analog shelf or a digital shelf. We actually hope that the publication is a starting point for you to engage in GPQI's dialogues on trade and innovation. As we heard during the panel discussion quite strongly, QI needs to adapt constantly to new challenges, including digitalization. And there is no perfect system. I think this is something that we try to make very clear in the publication as well. So in order to adapt to new challenges in today's world, we need international dialogue. And we hope that this publication will contribute to integrating markets and people, improve innovation, as well as protecting people and the environment. So with those words, I hope you do download the publication, check out the QR code, or check out our website. Stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kushwant and Philip, and that you took us on the journey of this publication and got us more motivated to actually read it, even just for the simple fact to be able to impress other people by knowing what all these different symbols mean. Well, I'm going to definitely read the publication again a second time. So thank you so much, you two.